Well, before I answer the question, let's say that I'm really happy to be here with you, and I didn't think that you will be like so many people coming to this meeting with us, which means that probably we are waiting for a new revolution to come, and you are the first assembly of a possible revolution. So maybe it's not. Thank you for coming. I think we're living in a very conservative context, much more conservative than the 70s or even the 60s. We are in a very normative regime, and I would like to reframe some of the things that you've been saying before, because I don't really feel comfortable within this framework, which is totally around gender binarism. I've been hearing like female, masculinity, femininity, if girls do this, if boys do that. And let me tell you, I mean, we're many people. I speak for myself, but I also speak for a huge international movement to not identify with this binary that we think about as a regime, as a political regime. And I don't think anything is going to change for girls or for boys or for mothers if we don't question this regime. It would be a question. I mean, in a way, I'm going to try to just establish a discussion with you. I a little bit disagree in the sense that it's not a question of what if girls or boys are playing with dolls and which ones are the dolls. I told myself the story of the Barbie, because the Barbie was a whore at the beginning. You know, the Barbie doll was a whore in the 50s, in the early 50s, before it became Barbie, right? So it would be very different if we would say to girls, little girls, you're playing with a whore. Identify with a whore, right? Well, how would be that? I mean, maybe you're not so happy about that, but for me, it's not so much a question about who's playing with what, right? I myself play with everything, and I like to play with many different things, including living dolls and myself. So I would say that what we have to question is this binary that I think is not useful anymore. This binary, and to come back to the question of nature, right? I think we need to make a little bit of history of sexuality, of sex and gender, and just to understand how the binary was invented. We have this impression that basically femaleness and masculinity are totally natural, are like given by nature, right? And well, if we study the history of sexuality, we might understand that this is a quite recent invention, as we know it, that has to do with heterosexuality and the alignment of sexuality and reproduction. That's why the figure of the mother is a really key figure of nature, right? Because now that everything is being in a way mixed up, the only thing that is still considered as natural is this figure of the mother. And that's why conservative feminists are coming back to the figure of the mother, right? But at the same time, I will have to say that if we study the way in which gender and sex and sexuality was constructed, especially during the 50s, we see that already within scientific discourse, it's been a huge discussion about how many sex are in nature, right? Now science is really talking about the possibility of 4, 5, even 10, even more. And probably what we know now is that there is a multiplicity of the body, a kind of a genetic multiplicity that cannot be reduced to the binary. There is no way that it can be reduced to the binary. And this already happened in the 40s, when basically medical discourse realized that 4 out of 1,000 boys or girls' bodies, let's say, newborns, were born with genitals that could not enter within the female or masculine canon, right? And of course, I don't know if you know what happened at that point, but what happened is that basically the medical discourse invented new techniques, both hormonal and all kinds of medical techniques to reconduce gender, retrace back gender into femininity and masculinity. So that's why I think that the big question right now for feminism, and I see myself as a feminist, but of course as a kind of a radical feminist, because I'm expanding the way we understand femininity. For me, feminism, the subject of feminism is not women, right? Well, I don't know if you agree, but that's why I see you all as probably feminists, right? And I don't think things are going to change until feminism comes into alliance with the queer movements and the anti-racist movements to fight the binary and the norm. There is no way that we can do it just thinking about motherhood and femininity and masculinity. We have to expand the way we think about gender and sexuality. I know that we're going to have a discussion here.
Can I come back to that? Can I come back?
Allora, il discorso c'era Natasha forse che voleva intervenire un momento.
Can I just say one thing? I mean, you said that you wanted to sort of take issue or pick holes, but I feel there's, nothing between us in that. Obviously, the reason why I find that rise of that pink and that blue, the two separate aisles, the ways we expect our boys and girls to behave so separately, is because I agree. I think there should be freedom. Mm-hmm. And I believe very, very strongly that feminism is not about women, it is about equality. And equality means that it has to be about men and women both, to liberate themselves from this kind of, this binarism. It is so important that we can then move on to true liberation, not just for women, but for men as well. Yeah, and throughout my book, I'm discussing the experiences of men too.
I could agree, but to the point that you're saying that it's for men and women, and in a way you already know what it is, men and women. You seem to know that these two poles that you have, they have to come into equality. And what I'm saying is that I do not identify with that regime. I'm not a woman and I'm not a man. And I would like just the European community to take out I would like the European community to take out the female sign on my ID. I think that is just like a discrimination sign, and every one of us should go to the European community and say, I don't want to be identified by my genitals. I don't want.